This is the first episode. Oh,
I know.
I forgot to tell you.
No, the first one, I didn't listen to it, but I thought it was an excellent title for your first episode.
Oh, for my episode? Oh, you did?
Great. I was like, that's a good hook right there.
Yeah, I was like, how clickbaity can I make this?
It was, as a copywriter, I was like, game recognized game right there. I need to understand this.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. That was solid.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, especially for a podcast that is kind of spiritual, right? Like your risk is coming across as sanctimonious and better than, right?
Yeah. What does sanctimonious mean?
Like holier than thou.
Yeah.
And like, I'm teaching all of you about how to be amazing and close to divinity like me, like I have, and people are just like, I don't want to hear that. So by you being like, I have a rash on my balls or something like that, it tears it all down.
Yeah. Wow. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's aware. It was like, oh, so you're aware of how you're coming off.
I do feel like I feel so icky trying to make it seem like I figured it all out.
Yeah.
And like, I can feel it when I'm acting that way and I'm acting in like a guru or like, here's the right thing to do. And when I'm more like authentic and vulnerable and like, here's the shit that I'm going, I feel like I connect more deeply with everybody too. So
yeah. What's the saying? Follow those who seek truth. Beware of those who claim to have found it.
I love that.
Yeah. Are we going?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Becoming Super Conscious. I am your host, Tommy Sobel. I've got Kyle Thiermann here in the podcast studio. He is an amazing guy, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him in a second. He has written a book called One Last Question Before You Go, which is about interviewing your parents. And we're going to talk about his relationship with writing a book, what it's like creating generational wisdom in a world where we really value youth, and we kind of put our elderly people in old folks' homes and feel like we want to just ignore what they're doing, really valuing what our elders and our parents can teach us in a new way. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I know I just did a very, very basic intro about you, but also I know you're a award-winning journalist and you're a big wave surfer. And you also have a really popular, long-standing podcast with a bunch of amazing guests. Yeah, I'm just so grateful to be here. I feel kind of like self-conscious. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're on my podcast? Like,
my list of failures is equally as long, I assure you.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. I love being reconnected here. So Kyle and I met on a paintball field.
The way all great friendships should start is on the battlefield.
Exactly.
Yeah, have you gone paintballing since?
I don't think so. No, but I've been wanting to.
It's so intense.
I love it.
I love it. So freaking fun. I mean, it like triggers a level of adrenaline that is hard to find. Yeah. And another thing that is so funny about that paintballing is some people are really good at it. Like some people go paintballing every week and just snipe people like us all day long, which is what I felt was happening.
Yeah, and they're like 12-year-old kids with like their own guns.
Yeah.
And it's like a completely different level. Yeah, well, listen, I know we were kind of talking about it before we started talking, but I have been really wanting to get to know you better, and I really felt connected to you on that field somehow for some reason. Like I really just loved your vibe, and the little bit about what you were doing really resonated with me. And so I've just been wanting to hang out with you and get to know you better for like a year. And it's cool that
it takes a recorded conversation for people to get together in
LA.
That's
we got to commodify it.
We need to commodify any interaction for it to actually happen. I'm happy to be here too, man. You fellow seeker. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I'm glad that we get to create this content together and hopefully create something special that's valuable for other people too. So I guess, to start, you wrote this book and it was informed by your relationship with your parents. And actually, I think you had your dad on your podcast. Is that right? And then you asked him questions, and that was one of the main impetuses of this book. Can you maybe explain that a little bit more, how it started?
Yeah, I had my dad on my show during COVID. And I didn't, to be honest, I didn't have a guest for the week, and it was just like, oh, I'll have my dad on. It was not a very well thought out, like, oh, this is going to be so profound and cool. It's like, oh, he's a classic old documentary filmmaker who's lived in Santa Cruz, California for the last 40 years, videoing like Adyashanti spiritual seminars and just, anti-nuclear war ex-hippie who'd lived a very colorful life. He goes to the flea market every weekend and haggles for crazy shit that he's never going to use. Like there's one of my favorite birthday cards that my dad ever received was a card of a garage. And it said, "To the man who has everything and keeps it all in his garage." That's my dad. So I had him on my show, and he told me about aspects of his life before I was born that I really only vaguely knew about, and told 5 or 6 stories with messages in them that I realized, had I not asked those questions, I would have never learned. And it allowed us to drop into like this, an undistracted time of communication that's, I think, really rare for kids and parents. And then after the show, my inbox kind of blew up. Like, a lot of people reached out and were like, that was so cool. I want to interview my own parents. How do I do this? It felt like a thing that a lot of people had been thinking about doing, but didn't really know how. I think what keeps a lot of people from doing it is the lack of skill that, okay, I don't know if this is going to be bad, and a fear that it's going to maybe further alienate an already fragile relationship. So that was my first signal that maybe there's some interest around interviewing our parents for a multitude of reasons, whether it be I want to preserve audio of them before they die for my grandkids to be able to hear. This is really the first time in human history where it's as easy as pulling out your phone to record audio of your parent that could be around for the next 10,000 years. It's easy now. Second could be that I want to get to know who they were before they were my parent. So for a lot of us, we've always stayed in this childlike role, right? Even when we go home to Thanksgiving, when we're fully adults, we like revert back to being 16-year-olds. So to sit across from them as journalists, step out of the role of child and into a person sitting across from another person who's going to let them have the floor is another interest. And the third that I think is the real kicker here is that it is a damn good way to learn about yourself. We are in a culture that is obsessed with self-understanding, self-growth, psychedelics, right? The rise of psychedelics is really the rise of getting to understand ourselves better. And here we have these windows that are hidden in plain sight through our parents, and the stories that happen to them have imprinted on us. And asking some of those questions can create some real aha moments that I think can be freeing to get to know ourselves better. It's just an example of this. Like, there's science around how if you came into adulthood in your 20s during a recession, you will be more frugal for the rest of your life, because that culture has imprinted on your consciousness for the next, and it may impact your parenting, right? So asking your parent about, like, what was the economy like when you were in college? What was culture like? Can give you this window into how they see the world and how they raised you.
And humanize them maybe in ways where I think maybe we were frustrated that they behaved in certain ways, to really see that it didn't start with them, that it started before them, and they're a product of their environment and their experiences, and appreciating them maybe a little bit more because of that.
Totally. So through the book project, it really, yes, I have learned some tricks and tips around how to ask questions, how to do the interviews, but I called on a lot of experts throughout this book, experts in parent-child relationships, question asking, somatic healing. One person I interviewed is named Dr. Katie Hendricks. Katie and Gay Hendricks have written like 40 books. They've been on Oprah, and they're experts in somatic healing. And Katie told me this story where she said, I interviewed my mom, and her mother told this story about going to the grocery store when she was like 12 years old and losing the week's grocery money. And her family was so hard on her about that, it caused her to be parsimonious and nickel and dimey for the rest of her life. She never got through that. And Katie had never known, like, why is my mom like this around money? But then she answered that question. I was like, oh my God, I see now. And that's, I mean, for me, I think it's just a process of growing up, right?
Yeah.
You get to, when you're a kid, you see your parent as like all-knowing. They're superheroes. They can do no wrong. You grow up, you're like, oh my God, they're horrible. They fucked me up. And then you hopefully get to another level where you're like, oh my God, they're just people who had sex and I'm the product of that.
Exactly. Yeah. And you love them anyway, despite their limitations or despite that. It's kind of like, I think of it the exact same way. And it's kind of like Santa Claus too, where like when you're a kid, you believe in Santa Claus. You're like, for sure Santa exists. And then you learn that Santa doesn't exist, and that's real. And then you realize Santa does exist.
Yeah, just not in the way that you, Santa's right here.
Exists with the love. Like it's almost choosing love as the existence, and it's the same with the parents. That's like the mature.
I remember the moment I learned Santa Claus didn't exist.
Me too.
Do you like? It's such a crushing.
What happened? What was your moment?
A kid told me at school, I came home, my mom was in the bathtub, and I was like, I opened the door. I was like, you said Santa exists. She's like, no, I told you the spirit of Santa existed.
Right.
And I remember just feeling like, you know, we have these seminal moments growing up that kind of shift everything for us. And I remember that being one.
Yeah.
And doing a series of interviews with my parents and also writing a book about it, I think have also been a shift in another very healthy way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was saying the Santa thing as a joke, but I feel like that's actually a really good example where I think a lot of kids, Christian kids at least, experience a form of betrayal from their parents where they're kind of told that this is true, and then they find out in the real world that their parents lied to them, you know, for good reasons. And I found out in 7th grade in class where my teacher was like, okay, when did you learn that Santa didn't exist? Oof. And I was like, just now. But yeah, so like I felt that pain from my parents, realizing why they wanted us to believe in Santa at a later time and appreciating it. And then I think that comes full circle now as I'm going to become a parent, as we become the next generation of parents of like, okay, how are we going to treat that same situation, even though it was painful for us? And honestly, it's been kind of challenging. And so like part of me wants to, I know this feels like so not important, but for me, it's like, there's a big part of me that doesn't want to lie to my child about anything and doesn't want to tell them that Santa exists and just be really full-blown honest from the beginning. Like Santa exists if you believe in him, if you want him to exist.
Yeah. I think that's the move, personally.
So that's where I'm at. But then there's this whole other, and I think my wife more feels that the opposite side. We're like, no, there's something so magical, so many special experiences that you get that are so valuable, even though they're not permanent, even though they, you know, you don't feel that way forever, of actually thinking that he's real. And it creates a real sense of magic that she wants our kids to experience too, even though you know, you kind of find out later. And for anybody else that is watching this that still believes in Santa, Santa
it's
does
still
exist.
Here. Yeah, we don't know what we're talking about.
But yeah, so I think maybe it informs our own parenting style. And I'm looking forward to interviewing my parents, actually. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And this, I feel much more empowered to have the step-by-step, the questions, and, you know, we'll probably riff or whatever. But that's one really great example where if I could understand better their decision-making of how they raised us, of how my dad was Jewish, my mom was Christian. And so they had to have a conversation of like, are we going to do Santa at all? And how are we going to run that? understanding how they came to that decision
Yeah.
will probably help me come to my own decisions, because I'll be more informed around what both sides of that experience were. You know, my childhood experience of then that kind of mini betrayal and why they did it. So,
Right. Right. I mean, well, when you're a kid, you're not seeing the behind the scenes decision making and the conversation that you're having with your partner right now. Like, how should we handle this Santa thing? Right. Like, a kid has no
yeah.
understanding that all these conversations are going on. And you hit on a good word there, which is like decision making. Like, how were your parents choosing to make decisions? And maybe they were the right decisions, maybe they were the wrong ones, but they were doing the best they could at that time.
Yeah.
One of the people who's a character in the book is a hospice nurse. So she deals with dying people all the time. She's since become a pediatric hospice nurse, which is a real fun job, but just has this understanding of how families are when one of them is dying. Right? And she said, you really get a good sense of how the parent-child relationship is when the parent is dying, because all this unspoken shit just starts to come out, right? Like grief doesn't happen. It's
when
not
things are good.
And grief also isn't necessarily the first emotion to happen when someone is dying, right? A lot of it is like annoyance, resentment, logistics, stuff like that. She said you can really tell which families have come to terms with their bullshit and just gain more of this understanding, like what you're talking about, like, oh, I'm gonna choose to have some empathy for this person and their decision-making process at that time, so that I can just feel a bit more complete when that day comes. And pretty often it's an unexpected day that comes. You know, like I had interviewed my dad for the pod, but it wasn't an immediate idea for it to be a book project. And I didn't start on the book until my mom, about a year later, was helping a friend back her car up in one of those parking garages. And she wasn't looking where she was going, and the parking garage lever fell on her head.
Oh my gosh.
Drove her to the ground, and she broke her hip. My mom had always been spry, energetic, healthy, capable person. It just kind of freaked me out. Like, I was like, holy shit. Like, I expected my mom to be around a lot longer. And now here's this piece of evidence that she could go at any time. I wanted to then take that skill of getting some of her stories down on tape. It just added urgency to the project.
Yeah, I feel like those moments are so helpful in that way, because they really make you realize what's important and that life is happening and it's moving fast and you never know when it's going to be over. And I know we were talking before we started recording about the Palisades fire. And I feel like that was a big thing for my family, where it was like, holy shit, you could lose anything at any point.
Yeah.
And so what really matters? What do we care about? And that was my kind of version of that story, where I feel closer to my parents than I've ever been. We're talking about things like legacy and finances and like planning and like, do we really want to rebuild a home in this town? The conversations we're having never had a chance of being breached. It always was topical, surface level, because we just wanted to relax and just not have to think about the big stuff. And so like, it's a big forcing function, those moments of loss or almost loss, that I think have, the fire had so many silver linings, but I feel like that was one for me of really wanting to, I think that's why I'm so interested in talking to you about this, is because like I've been seeking a method to memorialize and capture what's left. Like, if we lost almost all of our material possessions, which we kind of did, unfortunately, what's left, and it's our memories and our experiences, and our parents are getting old.
Yeah.
And my grandfather is actually still alive. He's 98 years old. And so I've actually been thinking a lot about trying to memorialize and keep all of his wisdom and experiences. He has an incredible genealogical tree that he's kept over the years. And so for me, I'm thinking also about him. What method? I've like interviewed him and just done like notes in my phone, tried to like voice record things. I don't even know where
it is.
I can look
Yeah,
that
totally.
up. Like, it feels a little disorganized. And honestly, those attempts of like dabbling of trying to capture that information, that legacy and that wisdom. It's given me anxiety. There's been this like background anxiety. There's this ticking clock of running out of time and you just never really know if you're going to get another chance. Should I go fly to my grandfather this weekend just to spend time with them and record this? Those are the questions that I sit and ask myself. Should I do the same thing with my parents? I've been snoozing an email for the last 2 years. So it goes back into my inbox for 2 years.
It's the one you need to answer,
which is,
you
well,
won't do.
It's an email from, I think, Andrew Horn, who I think you know, or you might know.
Maybe.
He's a coach. Yeah.
Okay.
Really, really interesting guy. He's got like a Substack and it's all about leadership. He hosts like men's retreats. And one of his emails was about questions to feel closer to your parents. And I was like, I got to ask my parents these questions. Never done it. Asked them if we could ever meet and talk about, you know, certain questions, and always felt too busy. They're always too busy. Yeah. So this has been, I think, brought all that to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, losing everything. My mom and my dad both grew up in LA, and my mom grew up in a house down in the north end of Malibu. And there was a story that she told me when I interviewed her that I'd never really captured on tape. Her dad was in PR in LA. He was Jack Lemmon's PR guy.
Whoa.
And he got a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and was on his deathbed when she was 21 years old. So the hospital said, hey, there's nothing more we can do. You should probably bring him home to die. So they brought him back to this little cottage that they had in Malibu, which is not like today where there's, you know, crazy mansions down there. It was a very kind of quaint, small little house. A few days before he died, a storm hit Malibu. They evacuated the house. It washed away the entire house. Then the moving truck that they had taken all of his possessions into was stolen. And the next day he died.
Oh my God.
In a single week, every physical possession was erased.
Oh my God.
Besides one thing, actually, a tie that he had. It fell out of the moving truck as the robbers left. And my uncle Rick, who you know, he kept the tie. And when my mom married her current husband, he gave the tie to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I just got chills again. What do you think? Does that, besides the facts, does that mean anything to you?
I think that what we remember of our parents will be the stories. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, the way memory works is through story. Like that's what endures. And the best interviews are a few stories. So, I mean, I think maybe part of the anxiety that people feel about interviewing their parents is like, will it be profound? Will it heal our relationship? Will like it give way to this crazy psychedelic aha moment, which might happen, but just sitting down and asking a few thoughtful questions that draw out stories from their lives is enough. You know, this is how humans evolved, right? We told stories around the fire that then endured for generations and generations, and we've kind of lost that skill, like the skill of auditory storytelling.
Right.
It's been subsumed by pictures, right? And pictures are great, but they don't necessarily tell a story. And I think that specifically the value of getting your parents' voice down on tape. There's something about auditory closeness that you feel when you hear your mom or dad's voice in your ear long after they're gone. It keeps them around, you know, in a way that photographs or just written material doesn't. So I'm a really big fan of people not trying to overthink the interview, not trying to make it be this like big, profound thing, but just like, I want to hear, what was that like for you? You know, one story that my dad told me when I did my podcast with him was when he was in his 30s, as a documentary filmmaker, he got hired to shoot an event for Apple up in Palo Alto. And Muhammad Ali was at the event. This is when Muhammad Ali had already succumbed to Parkinson's. He was really far down that road, but it was like Muhammad Ali, everyone's just so afraid to piss him off or anything like that. My dad interviewed him. And before the interview, he said, hey, let me just like look at you. Here's a mirror. Look at yourself to make sure you're you're good. So Muhammad Ali pulled out the mirror, and my dad was a magician growing up, and it was a laughing mirror. So it's like it was like ha 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 ha, you know, it's like a gag gift, right? And my dad was like, "Oh my god, you could have heard a pin drop in this room. All these high-paid Apple executives are just like, holy shit, this guy's gonna freak out." And Muhammad Ali just like cracks up, and the whole room erupts in laughter. And my dad gives him the mirror. And for the rest of the day, Muhammad Ali is using the little gag mirror to other people. But that story's not profound, but it just says exactly who my dad was. Yeah. I'm going to remember that story. I wouldn't have asked it. And that's so freaking valuable for me to remember and know his character through a story. So that's, I think, the best possible way to go about it. And you can do it as simple as you can do a sit-down interview with them. But I say also, if you're really uncomfortable by interviewing your parents, bust out your phone in a car ride. And just get them to tell some stories into your phone through a 15-minute car ride. Record messages, save those messages.
There was something that you said kind of in the beginning that I want to get back to because, for the people that don't feel close to their parents, for me, I guess I'm lucky to say that I feel close enough to them where I don't currently feel at risk of
fracturing your relationship.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything I could say that could damage the relationship by just asking thoughtful questions. But I know that feeling. I felt that way about them for a while. And the way you presented it with your dad sounded like maybe that was the case with you.
Yeah, I think.
What was your relationship with your dad before you had that interview? Were you feeling like there was that risk?
It was, my dad and I have always been buddies. And he's always been a little aloof, distracted. Like he's the kind of guy who tries to do 10 things at once and is just like kind of all over the place. So it's hard to, it's like you good? Okay, cool. We're good. Like, he's like he was a great dad in many ways, but I always found it pretty hard to drop into something a little deeper with him. And he said something really interesting to me after the podcast. He wrote me an email and said, thanks for interviewing me. It made me feel like what I had to say was important. And I think a lot of parents feel that their kids don't care about how they see the world. Yeah. So that made me feel really good. That was another aspect of this whole thing that I had not thought of, which is that our parents can feel cast aside by their kids really quickly. That is culture's doing, right? We're obsessed with youth and we don't really value the wisdom of the elderly. And we're also not taught to ask questions. When we're in school, we get rewarded for having the right answer, not the right question. The smartest person in the room is known to have the answer, not ask the stupid question. So there's no incentive for us to progress at this skill, let alone use it on these people who we just see as these solitary, unmoving statues who are going to be in our lives until they're not.
Wow, that's such a good point. I also feel like because we know them before we're conscious or conscientious, I feel more able to get to know somebody that I just met as an adult.
Totally.
I feel like I would have known more about you on the paintball field than I know about my dad.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you see your parents as like the sunset. You're like, it's always just going to be here. Like,
you take it for granted and you just don't even think. And that, honestly, that's one of the things I love most about this project is like, it's like, oh yeah, this is something that I've never done that has been in maybe the background that maybe I would want at some point. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So I think, are you saying that you had a great relationship with your dad, but he was kind of, because he was aloof or he had a bunch of things going on, was part of you not sure if he was going to be able to drop in, and that if you did attempt to have like a get his testimony, that he might not be able to go there?
Yeah, I think that I would say what was making me nervous about that was that he would come off bad because I was going to put it out there. And if I was a little nervous that like how he was going to, I felt more protective of him than anything. And what was really a harder thing I think about this project was interviewing my mom and my stepdad, who I had a very close relationship with. They fell to what I would consider to be conspiracy theories, and it created a huge fission in our worldview. We can get into it if you want, but I would say that just the general package of it, whether or not your parents are conspiracy theorists or far right, far left, whatever that is, a distance in ideology can create a real distance in just relationship.
Yeah.
It's hard to have feel closeness with someone who believes fundamentally different things about the world than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my intent with this project is to show that you can still maintain those relationships, and you can even improve relationships with people who you believe totally different things about the world. And this is, I think it's also a newer thing in culture where your politics define you more than they used to.
Yeah.
It used to be more celebrated that Democrats and Republicans would compromise. We would talk about things that we disagreed about and still be able to maintain civility. Now that really, we're really in echo chambers.
Yeah.
And
so
divisive. And I think that asking questions and just putting yourself in that journalist seat where you're not going to react, you're just going to ask them questions. You don't need to respond. You can just then move on to the next question, is a method to maintain those relationships.
Yeah, I feel like that's maybe the only way to recreate intimacy with people that are so ideologically opposed, because they can feel there's so much in their own world of information that is so different that it's like understanding their perspective or their point of view can humanize them and be like, okay, I could see why you could think that.
Yeah.
Even though I don't necessarily agree. And then that's where intimacy can come from. Be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you're a person now.
Yeah. One person that I interviewed for the book is a guy named Charles Duhigg, who wrote
Love
The Power.
Charles
Yeah. Power of Habit.
Used a lot of that method in my first business, helping people break their bad phone habits.
Right.
Love Power of Habit.
Yeah. His latest book is called Super Communicators, and it's all about how to connect with others. And one method that he talked about when I interviewed him is this idea of deep questions. So you don't ask someone just about the facts of their life. You ask them how they feel about their life, right? So this is not like, oh, where'd you go to school? And it's like, why did you want to go to that school? What was your first trip to Africa like? You get beyond just the facts and into their real position for doing that thing, which is gets back to what you were talking about, which is decision-making process. That is a real secret to good question asking, because then you're not arguing the facts. You can't argue how someone feels about their life. My mom went to Berkeley during the 1960s, and it was, crazy, just protests every day, tear gas in the streets. This was when Reagan was cracking down. She was in Berkeley during the Vietnam War draft, and she would sit around a TV with all these other college students, and they would spin these little capsules on TV and then pull out the capsules, call someone's number, and if their birthday, and if their birthday was called, they went to war. And she said she was in the room once, and there were these two brothers. One brother's name got called, the other didn't. Right? Just intense shit during that time. And for me to then ask her, what was it like to be at Berkeley in the 1960s at the center of this cultural revolution? It allowed me to understand a bit more about how she sees the world. And then the second thing that I would say, just this little tip for question asking, is it's very rare that you can just ask one question and that's what's going to get the answer. The real secret is then you do the follow-up question. And it could be as simple as well, what was that like? Tell me more about that. Interesting. And it shows then that you're paying attention to them, and that is really what gets people to expound. So yeah, I mean, it's a dance and it's a skill, and it's a really fun skill that isn't actually that hard to learn, and you'd be amazed what it does to conversation. You're really naturally tuned to this, right? You're a curious person and you're open to the unknown, right? And that's just a fun orientation to develop. Yeah, this book was a blast to write because I feel very uncomfortable positioning myself as the expert,
right?
Which is also you're really incentivized now to be the expert, right? There's whole courses on how do you be the expert in this thing or in that. That's how you get a bunch of Instagram followers and do the, and it's, dude, you're 26, you don't know shit. Fucking anyone who's below 50 should not be considered an expert in this.
Anything. So
that was also part of my own insecurity when writing this book.
And not wanting to be sanctimonious.
Not wanting to be sanctimonious. Great word there.
word.
Great word there. Yeah, I wanted to have it be my own exploration, right? And in the book, I mean, I failed miserably at some of the interviews in this book. And
what is a failed interview? How do you know it failed?
it's like, how do you know sex failed? You just do. It's
How
like,
do you know sex failed?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
I don't
You
like.
can fail at sex? Maybe if you don't.
It's just the awkward, like, ooh, that was, we really, I think that a bad interview just is a felt sense of awkwardness.
Right.
And pretty often, I think what a bad interview amounts to is the guest feeling judged. When they're, because
Totally.
right? Because like
Yeah.
when you're part of this whole thing, right? It's like, unless your parents are professional talk show hosts, they are opening up their closet
Yeah.
to you. And the big fear in a lot of people's brains is, am I going to sound stupid right now? Is
Yeah.
this bad?
Is this silly?
Is this silly? Is this
Yeah.
bad? So part of the job of the interviewer is to just let all that be there, and one tip that I give in the book is start the interview with your parents by asking about something that they care about deeply or have a great relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to start with a stumper.
Yeah.
So if you think like, what's a hobby of my mom? My dad, I interviewed him a number of times, but he was a magician through high school. And he grew up in Venice, and he paid for his high school with this. He had this old wooden box of magic tricks that he got at Joe Berg's magic shop on Hollywood Boulevard. And he would go around to these parties and, do a magic trick. I didn't know this, but then someone on a dare when he was in high school, Santa Monica High, dared him to run for student body vice president. And he goes up on the podium in front of his entire school and he said, to turn this thing around, we're really going to have to create some magic. And he does this and a fucking dove flies out of his sleeve, flies around the auditorium and then back on his shoulder.
Oh my God.
And he just it was easy for him to tell these stories because it was a great thing that he had a wonderful relationship with. And that, took up 30 minutes. And if we would have stopped the interview then, it would have been fun. So I think that you don't need to necessarily get into the darkness too quickly with them. It can be a good vibe.
If you're doing an interview and it is awkward or you feel out of your element or you're like, oh shit, am I judging them? Did I just project how I'm feeling about this situation onto them? Is there a way that you can like reorient and get it back on track?
Well, I'll first say it's okay to judge them. Just don't let them know it.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. Like, am I judging them out loud?
Yeah. Am I saying this all out loud right now?
Yeah,
Oh God, yeah.
I want to take a moment here because part of why I started this podcast was to share things that I love. And one of those things is New Brew. New Brew is my number one favorite drink. And I don't know if you know this, but I don't drink alcohol. I stopped drinking over 7 years ago. And for a while, I was seeking something to do in social scenarios where you're supposed to drink when all you're really going to do is talk to people. And so this became my go-to social drink. I love it because it has both kava and kratom. Kava is a root that has been used for centuries in the South Pacific. It gives you feelings of connection with others. And then kratom, that's an East Asian leaf that gives you feelings of euphoria. It boosts your mood and it's kind of stimulating. And so both of those together create this really powerful elixir that doesn't, for me, have the after effects of drinking. It also releases some background anxiety that I feel like sometimes I have in social situations. I just feel engaged, alert, attentive, feel good. And so it's just kind of my go-to drink. And the best part about it is I now have established a relationship with the company because I talk about it all the time. And so they gave me a code. They gave me the code Tommy, and you can use that for 25% off all your purchases on their website. Go ahead and check it out. Just know that you do want to drink responsibly because they do have some habit forming properties. So be responsible, don't overdo it, and hope you enjoy New Brew.
A huge amount of it is body language, right? So smiling, nodding, hands on the table, just feeling like I'm going to give you the floor right now goes a huge a hugely long way. Werner Herzog, great documentary filmmaker and interviewer, has a technique where he'll let his guest go on, and rather than interrupt with the next question, he'll just sit there and just let them feel like they have the floor to keep going. He's like, and then, they'll admit to the murder. But you can, in an interview with your parents, you can make it be a conversation if you want, but you can also just shift to a new subject. Mm-hmm. So once one ends, if it starts to feel awkward, you have the power to gear shift to something completely different.
Right.
I recommend before an interview, get your parents to send photographs of their life to you, and that will prompt stories. Again, the thing that you don't want to do is get them to talk in platitudes. Mm-hmm. And that's often where people go with interviews, is they just start talking about how, you want to find happiness and seek your bliss. They stop acting like your parents and they start trying to be wise and profound. Go specific with your questions. Tell me about this moment, and pull out a photograph of them hiking Yosemite. And then they can tell that story because it prompts them with something that it's like a piton they can hook into and tell a story. So have a few of those fun ones up your sleeve, and if shit starts to go a little off the rails, you can bring it back with a photograph or a story that can help get it back on track.
Yeah. That's really cool.
And it's fun for them too, to send the photos beforehand. I think that's a really cool part of the preparation aspect of it, is to get them to pull up all these old photographs from their lives and send them to you. And because that also is where you're like, who the hell was that? And they're like, that was my first husband. Yeah. And you're like, what? I didn't know about this.
How do you, for busy parents, how would you recommend trying to schedule this?
So happy you asked. There's a whole chapter on scheduling the interviews. Nice. I think that you're a habit guy. You know how much just setting the power of a deadline and the power of setting a date. That is the most important step of this whole process, right? Because you've been snoozing this email for a couple of years now, and we don't want to do the thing that's hard. So if there's one thing you could do, even before you do any other preparation, is just call your parents, say, hey, I'd love to record a few stories of your life, low pressure. Can you do it? Have a date in your mind. Can you do it on November 16th, whatever. At this time, great, we'll block off 2 hours. It'll be easy. And then once that date is set, you'd be amazed at how much will also come into place.
And 2 hours is good.
I think 2 hours is quite a long time, actually. And I would recommend maybe keeping it to an hour, hour and a half, depending on energy levels. Mm-hmm. Depending on how it goes, I interviewed my parents 3 times throughout the book each. And we focused every interview on a specific theme or aspect of life, because it allows you to go deeper into one theme. Like my dad, he's a magician. I did a whole interview with him about just magic.
Did you know that you were going to have a series beforehand? Like, was it all planned out, or were you like, let's just try it once and see how it goes, and then, I want to ask more questions about this the second time?
Part of it was the process of writing book and interviewing them while I was writing the book. So if you think about the initial inception for this project, right? It was that I interviewed my dad and was thinking like, wow, it's really weird. It seems like a lot of people might want to do this. And isn't it weird that we don't really ask our parents questions? Mm-hmm. Like that's so it's this little seed that then starts to grow. I initially thought like, oh, well, maybe this can be an article. Then I started reaching out to people, right? So I reached out to this hospice nurse. I was like, what do you think of it? And then I reached out to a guy named Chris Ryan, who wrote a book called Sex at Dawn, who was talking about parents in prehistory. The very concept of what a parent is a fairly new advent in society. For most of human history in hunter-gatherer societies, we didn't actually know
who the parent was.
And it was believed in a lot of societies that a fetus was formed from the accumulation of semen from multiple men, right? A lot of these hunter-gatherer tribes were polyamorous, and they believed that if you wanted to have a funny, smart, strong kid, you had to have sex with the funny guy, the smart guy, the strong guy, right? And as a result, gave way to greater community cohesion because they took shared responsibility for the kid. The nuclear family is a new thing, right? So that was an aspect of this project that I had no idea was going to take me down when I first started. But I'm like, holy shit, just the concept of parent is flexible. So that's another thing that I recommend, for people whose parents have either died or maybe they just have a horrible relationship with their parent and no curiosity around that person, like no shame too. I think that there can be a bit of, like shame, like I don't want to interview my parent. And in that case, like don't. I don't. But you can apply this concept to mentors. You can apply it to
Or like grandparents.
You can apply it to all these other people. But I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy though. Just the way that I conceive of the word parent has changed throughout human history. Chris Ryan had this great line where he said, it's like growing up with a sky full of stars or a sky with just one moon. You see the universe differently.
Wait, what does that mean?
Like if you grew up in a hunter-gatherer society, they all called multiple men dad.
Got it. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you literally
didn't know.
You literally didn't know.
All were valued. Yeah.
Totally.
All were responsible.
And even today, Hawaii, which was a polygamous culture for a long time, King Kamehameha was said to have had 2 fathers. The idea of parent is still cast much more liberally, right? Aunties, uncles, like just the way that we think about family in a lot of these Polynesian islands is different from the continental US, right? Where it's like, oh, don't talk to my kid, it's just very...
Yeah, that nuclear family.
Very separate.
Totally. And it kind of lacks that just natural community and tribal, multi-generational support that I feel like we really do need as parents, families.
Yeah. So to answer the question about like how the book came to be, it really was this process of having this little insight and then just spending my evenings for the last 3 years. It's like feeling around in a room in the dark for these different walls of a project that are interesting or unexpected and unique. And that led me to interview all kinds of experts, do a number of interviews with my parents, ultimately, come away with the book a few years later. If you spend enough time, just enough sessions, just clawing your eyes out in front of a computer, eventually it happens.
I am curious about that too, because, you're a writer, you're a journalist, you've written a lot of things that you've finished and published that a lot of people read, and, you have a lot of acclaim, and that's kind of like your thing, one of your things. And so I would say reading a book is a natural progression of that. I'm curious, I've been wanting to write a book. I did kind of write the first draft of a book that has just been kind of on ice, kind of on the back burner. And I know so many people who kind of have that book in them or have their book idea or have their outline that just really feel blocked or really feel like that. Writing a book is a spiritual experience. I mean, my process so far, like it is like a childbirth. Or it's like getting pregnant and then like choosing the right partner with the right subject. And then sometimes
like
you
taking
have
a massive dump.
Or a miscarriage. What is that like? I mean, you are unique in that you had a lot of experience with it. A lot of people have less experience. Do you have any recommendations for people like me, I guess, that are kind of in this half-built bridge scenario?
Sure.
Finish it?
Sure. It is very worth it to do it if you feel like you have it in you. And I mean, it's the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. It's a crazy form of growth. Like for me, I mean, I'd been a journalist for a long time. I then moved to LA to be a copywriter and have worked, pay the bills by writing commercials for brands and, tell them silly jokes and then do the journalism. Journalism's hard to pay the bills with, but I love the long form storytelling aspect of it. So the last few years it was hustling, working copywriting jobs, and then writing this book on the side. So for me, it was a lot about carving out the time on a day-to-day basis to do it, because the longer, and this happened a few times, the longer I would go without writing, the more it would build up in my brain and the more doubts I would have about my own ability to finish the book. I had a lot of enthusiasm around it, but there was a point in the writing process where I thought I did not have it in me to be an author. And I'm not just saying that to be like a falsely humble. Like it's fucking writers kill themselves all the time. And I felt like after writing this, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, yeah, this is just, you're holding so much in your brain and the stakes feel so high that it can be really tempting to just quit, especially in a world where you can post a photo on Instagram and get a ton of validation immediately, right? So that's a hard thing about a book. It's a slow process. The recommendation that I have is to make it be consistent, and you can be consistent even with half an hour sessions, because it deflates the giant. Mm-hmm. And then you need to make yourself feel successful for having done the writing session, even if it's absolutely dog shit words on a paper, because rewriting is the essence of writing. Mm-hmm. And if you can just get this stuff out there and be like, wow, this is so bad, but success is in the fact that I just did a writing session, you can keep coming back to that again and again. And if you do that thing enough times, eventually you'll have a book on your hands. Mm-hmm. I use a time timer. Okay. You know about these? It's like
a Pomodoro timer?
Pomodoro timer, yeah. You just click the clock, do it. Okay, I do it for an hour. Mm-hmm. And I can't get up for an hour. And if I want to just stare at a blank page for an hour, I can.
Do you have app blockers?
I turn the internet off. Yep, mm-hmm. Turn the internet off. If it's a writing session, I will write. And oftentimes in a writing session, you'll notice that you need to research something. Like, mm-hmm. oh yeah, I don't know about this. And that's what derails you, is then you like start to research it and you're no longer writing. So the rule is, oh, I don't know about families in prehistory. I need to look that up. You write a note at either on a notepad or at the top of your computer where you like research this, boom. And it does not distract you from that writing session. You can just put a little XXX where that part of research needs to get done. And then in the next session, you do a research. Mm-hmm. So you dedicate them in a structured way. Often before writing sessions, I will, in my journal, do scene with Tommy. And my 1 hour session won't be the whole, I'm just going to write about whatever, but I'm just going to focus on building this one scene. Mm-hmm. Good writing usually involves all five senses. You're not going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You're doing a few things. It's a process of elimination. So you're extracting what's unnecessary and doing a whole 1,000 words or a couple thousand words on a single idea. And often it can be a single scene, and just stretching that apart. So one thing that really helped me was to write down beforehand the single scene that I would build during that writing session.
And when you say scene, is that kind of like the outcome or like the idea, the beginning and end?
No, like let's say it's a scene with, let's just take the idea of parenting in prehistory, which is a chapter. I sat down with the expert in parenting in prehistory. He rocked back and forth on his chair and fiddled with his pencil before he told me, Then I asked, and then you move out to like, it turns out that in history, hunter-gatherers believed in something called partible paternity, back in the scene, but like it's a consolidated idea.
I see what you mean.
And you're building out that scene. And then once you're done with that, you're like, sweet, I'll probably keep moving on, keep torturing this for another year or something, but it's good enough. I'm moving on to the next chunk, right? You're building a house brick by brick.
That's cool, because I don't think as I write, I'm thinking about it from that perspective of classic storytelling. It's a little bit more like educational, informational, but I like that you're thinking of it as scene first. How would I tell this around a campfire?
Yep.
And that's the goal for each moment, each beat. And that's kind of what you see in the books that you like to read. Like Atomic Habits is like another one where I feel like every single chapter, James Clear is starting with a story and then he's baking the kind of the nugget of information within the scene, within the story. So that's really cool.
You can write a whole book by the formula of story, idea.
Yeah.
Start with a scene, bust it out into the bigger idea, wrap it up, boom. You just got a 1,500 word chapter, on to the next one.
Wow.
It's James Clear, first line in that book. When I was in high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Boom, you're in a scene. So I find that what really derails people from books is just the enormity of the task, and they feel that they need to keep the whole thing in their brain at all times. But it really is a hike up a huge mountain. You don't need to think about the top at all times. You just need to think about the next step. And you can even forget about the top of the mountain for a long time and just focus on that next step in front of you. And you do that enough times that ultimately you're going to have a whole draft in front of you. Most people have jobs, right? If you're probably not going to be able to dedicate full time to a book. And for me, I really enjoyed that because I could wake up, spend an hour or two writing the book, go for a walk, and then cool, now I'm on to my job. Forget about it for the rest of the day, do that again the next day. It just takes that consistency to keep showing up and be willing to be like, this sucks. It's okay for this to suck.
I think my challenge at one point was it would take me half an hour to get back into the zone, to get context switched, to get in the flow of writing. And then it was, the 1 hour that I set aside before going back to the job is now over. So it almost felt like it was constantly just warming up, but not actually cooking.
Totally. Do you ever write in a notebook?
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you're having a hard time getting words on paper, switch from computer to notebook and then type out that draft on your computer. Because what you don't want to have, and a lot of what the warming up feeling is this, you still have your editor's brain on. So you write a sentence and you're like, was that good? Then you're like, okay, I'm going to go back and rewrite this sentence. Then, okay, I'm going to write this paragraph. Now I'm going to think about this paragraph for the next half an hour rather than moving on to the next paragraph. The power of a notebook is you can't erase anything. If you're writing with a pen, you just fill up 3 pages and you'd be amazed at how good some of those sentences are going to be. You transfer those sentences onto your computer and then you're like, holy shit, I have 2 pages here. Rock on. Okay, cool. I'm going to do this same thing again. If you're having a really hard time getting sentences out, and I would do this some mornings, I would open my Kindle to one of my favorite authors, David Sedaris, always makes me smile, and I would write out half a page of his book, and then I would move on to my own.
Wow, that's cool. Jumpstart.
Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah, I think you're reminding me that the writer brain and the editor brain, those are completely different brains. You caught it. I think what I've been doing is I've been trying to write and edit at the same time, and that's putting your foot on the gas and the brakes at the same time.
Totally.
And like that is how it's felt. I'm not moving anywhere.
Yeah, totally. And it starts to build up in your brain. And another thing that I did, I'm a really big fan of moving through my career through fear of disappointing others who I respect. This is a hugely powerful tool in the tool belt. Right. Like, okay. So I am friends with a woman who was wonderful. She's in her mid-60s now, and she used to be an editor at the LA Times. She's not as busy anymore, right? So she had more time, and she was a friend of mine, and I said, hey, will you set some deadlines for me? And we built out a Google Sheets list of, hey, here are all the chapters, here are the deadlines for each chapter. We're going to meet on each of these dates. Terrified of this woman. She's a tiger. She's such a freaking badass. And I would think like, oh, freaking Pam Higgins is going to be real disappointed in me if I don't turn in this new chapter. So having the accountability was also a really big part of this process for me.
That's such a great point. I feel like, I got to give my producer Missy credit over here because I wouldn't have this podcast without having somebody else to meet with and be accountable to. And honestly, like that's human nature at its core too. Like we are tribal creatures. We're talking about us as kind of cavemen. We all have that communal, like if you can create positive peer pressure and awareness that other people know that you're working on this or are holding you accountable to create that, that's how I've achieved everything. And maybe it's just, maybe I haven't finished my book because I was doing it alone. And maybe all the projects that I have that feel like half-built bridges are because I've been doing it alone. Because everything that I've done with a partner, I guess start a family, you can't really do alone. But like the big projects that I've had other people's support with, those are the ones that have that stability and that they're real.
It's not a solitary act, writing a book. It's a team sport, and you might be the quarterback of the team, but understanding what is going to get you going. And for me, that was that social pressure helped tremendously. There's two ways to go about this, but I didn't really like talking about my book all that often because it made me feel like I was closer to the finish line than I was.
Seriously. Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you feel immediate, like, oh my God, Tommy, you're writing a book? That's amazing. That's amazing.
How's your book going?
Yeah, how's your book going? And you're like, oh, it's going. You know, and you're like, oh,
Can I
haven't
read
worked
your
on this
book?
thing I haven't worked on this thing in a month. So keeping it close to the chest for a certain amount of time, keep that football close, helped me not get lazy with the validation of not working on it. That's something that, yeah, it's a personal project. And here's another thing too, is your book could be completely different a year from now, right? It could be on a legitimate different subject than what you think it is on right now through the writing process. So not talking about it a ton gives you the freedom to move laterally through this creative space because here's a big thing. This is why most people don't do this. They think that you need to have the idea to then put it down on paper. You get the idea when you are writing. It's improv. The idea comes when you're in scene. And it's the same with writing. So you don't need to be inspired or have some idea that you need to get down on paper. You just choose to show up for that session. Wow. And then the idea comes, and it could be a holy shit idea that diverts your whole project. So, and that's this, I think, the spiritual practice of it, right?
It's
you're
like channeling.
Wow, you're channeling some shit. Yeah. It's cool, man. I mean, you set yourself up at the altar enough times. I didn't grow up religious. I've always felt a bit spiritually bereft. I've sought things.
Sorry, bereft
as just like empty. Or? Yeah. Like I have community, but like I feel jealous of people who grew up going to church and that sense that there's something that we can pray to and find holy and is ineffable, has always been like, man, I want more of that in my life. There's got to be more than just trying to get a big bank account and be high status and get accolades. Like I felt that when, surfing gives me that, exercise gives me that feeling of love, like deep connection with my fiance. I get that. And writing gives me that more consistently than just about anything. And it does at times feel like something's coming through you and you're not doing it. And it's just, whoa, it's rare. But when that happens, oh my God, you feel closer to yourself.
So what does that mean to you? Are you describing like what spirituality is to you? Like a connection with something bigger?
Yeah. Writing is a spiritual practice for me. And often, I don't want to romanticize it. Often it's really frustrating and I'm full of self-doubt and it's a feeling like I'll never be as good as the people I like and want to get to be. But at times a deeper voice comes through me in my writing and it feels way closer to who I actually am. Pretty often I've felt like I'm sort of misunderstood or the thing that I say is close to what I really wanted to say, but it's not actually that. And at times when I'm doing a writing session, there's a stillness that I find very hard to get to in most other aspects of life.
So when you say you were jealous of people that went to church, it's not necessarily like going to, like I went to church and I was an atheist. I went to church because it was like an hour where I could just not think.
Yeah.
I had no experience or relationship with God or whatever higher power. It was only recently. And I guess, is that kind of what you were saying, that you were jealous of people that felt this connection with something and now that this is how you experience it?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Do you still have that envy, or do you feel like are you still seeking it in other ways, or do you feel like, wow, I've found it now?
Yes, I am still seeking it in other ways, and I am finding myself more curious about various religions.
Hmm.
I'm finding myself more interested in the idea of prayer and of being in service to that bigger thing, which is, as soon as we start talking about this, I realize how annoying I sound. Like I just
I don't
get
think
like,
you
you
sound-
just get we get into platitudes, you know, it's hard to,
You feel
to
like you're getting into platitudes?
yeah, I feel like spirituality is just so hard to describe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's why I'm asking, honestly, because I feel like because it's so hard to describe, and because I feel like it's spirituality and religion is different. Where like with religion, it's like kind of defined by other people,
Mhm.
whereas spirituality is defined by each individual, or like every single spiritual person that I know like describes it differently and has
Yeah.
a different relationship with their thing.
Yeah.
And so that, I'm so curious, like kind of how it sounds like that, writing this
Yeah.
book, like this is you're channeling, you're having a spiritual experience. Like you said, you are pulling information from somewhere. And what is that? Like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? And is that why we're here? Like, is that what we're supposed to do? Like, it's so connected, I think, with purpose. And you said, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. So that sounds like purpose to me. This feels like there's a part of you that feels like this is your purpose, or you feel very purposeful, or potentially, I'm putting words in your mouth,
Sure.
but like fulfilled potentially through this process. And I feel like that's what each person's individual spiritual
Mhm.
practice can give you,
Yeah.
is find that sense of purpose or fulfillment that might have been sought elsewhere in the money, in the status, but is empty, and like, whoa, maybe this is where it's at. So
Yeah, I mean, my dark side is never feeling good enough. That's, that it's I do it less and less, but like a lot of nights I would go to sleep and moan at all of the things I had done badly that day. Like this feeling like, oh God, you blew it so hard. Oh God, just that. And the effort of the constant efforting
yeah,
to be someone that I want to be, and trying to like, okay, I'm going to psych myself up and be confident today. And like, just do this human thing again and again.
I resonate with that a lot.
Right. It's not a fun feeling to constantly be just whipping yourself for your insufficiency. And it's been a near constant voice that I've had in my brain ever since I was a kid. I don't think that my parents gave it to me. I think it was like, I don't think any of my brothers and sisters have it. I was just born this way. I felt it in surfing when I was a kid running around Santa Cruz with all these other little shredders who I always perceived to be as on the next level ahead of me. I always felt behind. I would just get so frustrated at my insufficiency and that comparison. It just led to I had a very hard time being proud of myself.
Yeah.
No matter what I would do. Like my mom once described me as having achievement bulimia.
Wow. That's a good way to put it.
And what writing the book has done for me is I just feel proud of myself, man. Like I feel proud of myself, and I feel like it's something that is a good offering for the world, and that connectedness and that like niceness, that voice of niceness, that voice of just okayness is something that I think is very close to the spirit, the spiritual voice.
Wow.
That's what this thing gave me.
So you've learned to be gentler with yourself and not self-flagellate as much throughout your accomplishments, through this accomplishment, this process.
Yeah, because it's just so slow to write the book. It's like people get it from doing really long hikes too.
Yeah. Why do you think this one was different? Because, you're a big wave surfer. Like you have a lot of things that I feel like you could
Be proud of myself for.
could be
Yeah.
equally proud of. Why do you think this one's different?
I think that it's different because it's just so it's so personal. It's so personal, and it's so slow, and it's this piece of art that I've just constantly been spending time with for such a long. I've never spent so much time with a single idea. and even surfing, like yes, I've done it for a really long time. I'm close to it. I love it, but it's not so silent and it's not so slow. This idea started 5 years ago. And to be like, whoa, holy shit, it's here now, I think has really helped me see the value of sticking with one idea that won't go away.
Do you think it also might have to do with there's like moment of completion? With surfing, maybe there's like, you just keep finding there's the next wave.
Yeah.
And you get better, obviously, but it's the the journey of mastery.
Sure.
A book is different than a Substack where, it's like you just keep writing. There's that completion. Does that have anything to do with it too? Or, okay, I persevered. It's done. And now it's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that it's the feeling of completion that has done it for me. I think more the process of saying what I really think. And to spend enough time with an idea to really dig down into how I really feel about my parents and really get those resentments down, really get that love down, and spend enough time massaging it to the point that I can be just proud of it. And, they say it's like the James Clear thing, like the ultimate habit shift is an identity shift. And to do it and feel like, man, I'm an author. I wrote a book.
Yeah. It's
just cool. It's just cool. And I think that everyone who has the idea for it should go do it.
Well, you're inspiring me to get back into it. I started mine 5 years ago and mine's not done.
Yeah.
So congratulations. I haven't touched it in 3 years. Cool. Yeah. I really appreciate that. I feel like what you're saying that I'm really resonating with is there's like a deep, deep practice of authenticity, of you really chiseling away of what you really want to say, what you really want to convey in a more and more authentic way, which maybe you never get to, like you said, you say the perfect thing. What I'm hearing you is the authenticity. Like this is something that is so personal, so deep within you coming out that a lot of people avoid their whole life, or they don't give themselves that. They stay in the comparison trap. They just post the stuff on Instagram. They don't go into what is my deeply most authentic expression.
Yeah. Who are you really?
Yeah.
Who are you really?
Yeah.
And it feels so good when someone sees us.
Yeah.
Like, who are you really?
Yeah.
And the book project is a constant process of that. And it wasn't, I could do it on my first draft. Like the first draft was much more glib and like beep boppy. This is how you do it. Boop, 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 boop. And then I had a really great editor who was like, you need to write your resentments. And that's how it's going to connect with other people. And sure, maybe you don't put all of that in the final draft, but I wrote a whole draft that was much angrier. The first draft was really glib. The second draft was really angry. And the third was the balance, right? And that was what I felt I had to get to when representing my parents as characters in a story. All great superheroes have some shadow side, and all great supervillains have some desire that you can identify with, right? And it takes a while to be able to write both sides of someone. And that's why the book took me so long to do, was to be able to get those different versions out, but to let the different parts of myself have their moment in the sun was what it took to do something that I feel proud of.
Well, I'm so glad that you followed that authentic journey and that you brought out from within you. I mean, you were really the perfect person based on your background and skills and relationships to write this book for all of us. And so I'm super excited to read it. I can't wait for it to be a massive success and have everyone become their own personal historian of their family and really make that as culturally normal as like brushing your teeth, as we used to tell stories by the campfire. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I just to finish it up, I think that's it, right? If we can make asking our parents questions cool.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
That's what you're doing. You
right?
did it.
Why not? And yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I think that you're a positive force in the world, and I appreciate you constantly bringing people together for serendipity. It's a great skill and a good use of time.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. That means a lot to hear. Awesome. Until next time.
Until next time.
Now we end all episodes with a high five.
All right.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
That was great.
Really appreciate it.